Hey, I want to thank you so much for volunteering in our children's ministry. We're excited to have new volunteers, and we're always looking for new ones who are willing to serve in this great ministry. So thank you for signing up to do that. Today, we're going to be going through your guide that you were given, the manual that looks like this. We decided this was the better way to do the orientation than to try to do meetings, because we all have different schedules and it just becomes difficult to get people together. So you're going to see that this is very rudimentary. I'm no actress. You can tell my background is nothing to be excited about, but we just wanted to have a way to communicate a few things with you. So this is the best way that I know how to do that. So if you would now, if you don't already have this copy with you, go ahead and pause me and run grab that so that we can go through a few of these items together. All right, if you'll flip on over to the first page, and I mean the first page is in page 1 down in the corner. It's actually the third page in your packet, but it's page 1 for us. All right, general information, you'll see the breakdown there of our programs. You see that there's Helen listed as the weekend director. Well, Helen is considered the weekend director because she is the one who does all the stuff on the weekends. Weekend director. She is responsible for getting in touch with you all, to work with you during the weekend if you were to have an emergency arise or whatever along those lines. And she oversees everything on Sunday mornings. Helen has quite a job to do, and she does it very well. So she's the person on the weekends. And then I'm the weekday director, so I do the planning of activities and making copies of the lessons, getting those in the classrooms, all the things that need to be taken care of during the week so that Sunday mornings can run more smoothly. And you'll see our numbers there if you were to need to get in touch with us, along with an email address. Next page, requirements for volunteering. We require that you be a member of Rich Acres Christian Church, and we, with most everybody, require the 6 months. There would be the occasional exception if someone has been maybe a member here for years, or rather, if they've attended here for years, and then they decide, hey, I think I'm going to put in, go ahead and move my membership here or whatever. We've had time to get to know that person, and so we would waive the 6 months in that. But that does not happen often. And so basically it is a member for at least 6 months. We also ask that you be a regular attendee of Rich Acres. And I know that might seem strange that we would even ask that, but you'd be surprised at how often we find, maybe I shouldn't say how often, but at times we do see that we'll have a volunteer now and again who will say, I only attend on the Sunday that I serve. Well, we have to remember that we are examples to the kids. They're watching us, and we need to be good examples of regular church attendance. So we ask that you regularly attend. If you are 18 or older, if you're not one of our teenagers, young teenagers serving, then you'll be asked to do a background check, and you may already have been asked to do so. That is a requirement for all volunteers that are 18 and older. Our teen volunteers must be at least 2 grade levels above the group in which they are serving. So, in other words, a 6th grader cannot be in the 3rd through 5th grade class because they aren't 2 grades out from that class. You just need that separation. One, so that the kids, or mainly so that the kids will have that level of respect for them and see them not as their peer, but as a volunteer. The next part, attendance and scheduling. We ask that you be here at the church by 10 o'clock. And by that, I mean inside, ready to go downstairs as soon as the doors open from first service. It is so important that you're here that early so that you can get downstairs in your classroom, get yourself kind of prepared for the kids that are coming in. And we're having some families that get here early. So, we want to have that, the rooms ready and our minds ready when they come in. So please be here at 10 o'clock. If you find that you're unable to serve on a Sunday that you are scheduled, if you know that in advance, please try to make every effort to switch with someone that's on the list. And you'll be provided a list that has emails and phone numbers for all the other volunteers. So we ask then that you would just contact them, switch with them, so that those are covered. However, we do know that the emergencies arise. And if one should arise late on Saturday or early Sunday morning, and you just do not, whatever the situation is, you can't find a person to switch with you, you are able to then contact Helen. But we ask that you do so by either calling her or texting her. Please don't email in that in the volunteer email list, because that might get lost in all the other stuff. And so she needs to know that all the classes are covered. So please make sure you either text her or call her to let her know what's going on with you. And lastly, there must always be 2 volunteers in a classroom at a time. Please don't find yourself alone with another child or with a child, whether it's in the classroom, in the bathroom. That is accountability, and it's protection for you and the child. So always make sure you got another volunteer with you. You'll see next that there are some things there listed about sanitation, and we just ask that at the end of class you use the wipes that are provided to just wipe down things that the kids have been touching, and just in an effort. We do have a lady who cleans during the week, but it would be too much to expect her to clean everything in every classroom every week. So if we could just get some help, and you can even get, if you're using just regular baby wipes, you can get the kids to help wipe down things. But, we just want to keep things as clean as we can. And always make sure that you're at least 24 hours free of any kind of sickness before you come in and volunteer. The last thing on page 2 is about diaper changing procedures. I'm not going to read every bit of that because it's quite a bit, but the main thing to remember is that if you are changing the diaper of a child, that you're always within view of the other volunteer in the class. And again, that's for your protection and for the protection of the child as well. Just making sure that we, take care to just cover ourselves in every way possible. And we want to make sure too that that we dispose of anything that we use during that diaper changing. And so their trash cans are provided, and baggies for you to put the either soiled clothes or a diaper or whatever in. Just make sure we take care of that, and always sanitize your hands following it. All right, next page. Safety team guidelines. Now, I won't read through every bit of this either, because not every person watching is going to be a safety team member. But I will say this: safety is our top priority. It is an absolute must. We want to teach the kids, but we've got to keep them safe before we can teach them. So, we have this thought that, and it's a wonderful thought, if only all churches were completely safe. However, we only have to watch the news a little bit to recognize that some really terrible things sometimes go on in churches, and we do not want to ever leave ourselves open to such things. So it is a top priority, and we have a wonderful safety team in place. And so there will be one person stationed at the top of the steps and one at the bottom of the steps at the beginning of church, and then again at the end. And then the one that's downstairs, the person downstairs, will walk through the hallways, checking things, making sure doors are locked, making sure everybody's safe as the service goes on. And as you might be aware, we are now not allowing any parents to go past the door at the bottom of the steps. No parents, no grandparents, no older siblings. If a person comes down that's 6th grade or up, they are not allowed to come past that doorway unless they are an approved volunteer and on the list. There's a list that hangs in the right there by the door, and the safety team members know who's allowed in our children's area. The door at the bottom is locked during the service. Now, all doors are locked coming into our children's area. They are not locked as far as you going out. So you just have the push bar, and you can get out anytime if there were to be a fire or a need to leave the area. But as far as coming in, the doors leading into the children's ministry area remain locked during the service. All right, on to emergency guidelines. You'll see that we have first aid kits in each of the classrooms. These would only be used for a minor injury, like a little scrape that could just be cleaned up with water and a Band-Aid put over it. We are not administering any medications during church, and that means if a child comes with medication, that would have to be, we don't administer any medications. So if a child is beginning to attend that maybe has a special need situation, that needs to be brought to our attention and we will address that. But if it's just a regular, I've got a headache and mom sent this, or a parent says my child has a toothache and, here's this, we do not administer any kind of medicines. If there is a need for 911, for CPR, or if it was to be something, a major accident that were to happen, please contact the safety person, and then they will move on to the next step of getting someone upstairs. We have lots of paramedics, people who are trained, but if we needed to call beyond that, we can call 911 and go from there. You'll see that it says in each of the rooms there's ouch reports and child incident reports. There are copies of those, and you will also find them in the back of this guide. The ouch report is something you would use if a child got hurt. If they got that scrape or they bumped their head, something minor like that. Make note that the parent or guardian has to sign that form before they leave that day. We want them to know what's happened, and we want them to sign off saying, I know this happened during church. All right, same thing for a child incident report. Well, how is that different than the ouch report? This is if there's an altercation, maybe between two students, but there weren't injuries necessarily, but it just something happened. We want parents, we want to be transparent, and we want parents to know what's going on, and we want documentation saying, yes, I was aware that this happened with my child, my grandchild, whomever, and it was disclosed to me. So that would need to be signed before they leave as well. Then there's some guidelines for if there were to be a fire. And in every classroom, there's a map showing the best way to get out of that room and then out of the building. Please familiarize yourself with whatever classroom you're in. And I know we think, well, the basement's not that big. But when you get in the middle of the chaos of something like a fire, your mind does not work like it would in a normal setting. So you need to have that in your mind. Where am I going? How am I getting out of here? And every Sunday that you're down there, how many children do I have? Count those heads so that if you were to leave, you can count before you leave. You count when you get outside. Make sure we don't leave any children in the building. And then we would take the children to the parsonage next door to the church on that carport. And that's where we would begin doing checkout to parents. So parents would be instructed. The kids are across the driveway or across the lower driveway in the carport area at that house down there. And that's where they would be sent to come pick up their children. All right, the next page 4, is really not something that you all need to know so much. It's more for the safety team, the one that's upstairs doing the check-in. So that's kind of just something you don't have to really worry about so much. Check-in procedures. Really the main thing for you to know here is if you're working in the nursery, or maybe sometimes even, no, I take that back, not We Worship. We don't want any food or drink coming in We Worship. And I know that is tough because we've got some little bitties, little 2-year-olds that maybe want a snack or something. But there are so many food allergies these days that we just made a decision overall that outside of nursery, there would be no food given out. Because even it's not even so much that we say we're not going to provide it. We just don't even want it brought in, because you all know, if you've ever worked with little kids, if one child brings out a bag of snacks, it's like the seagulls at the beach. They're all going to flock to that one with the bag of snacks, and we don't know who might have an allergy to what. So no food or drink for We Worship and up. Nursery, make sure when they come in, if the diaper bag does not have a label on it, you put a label. There's things provided you can do that. Sippy cups, make sure there's a name on the sippy cup. When you get 5 sippy cups, it becomes hard to tell whose is whose. So just make sure everything is labeled. And for all classes, nursery all the way up to 5th grade, first thing when a child comes to you, make sure they've got a tag. Make sure they've been signed in. And if not, that should have happened at check-in. At the bottom of the steps, the safety person would stop them and say, hey, you haven't signed in. You got to go upstairs and sign in. But things happen, and sometimes they may be taking care of another situation. So always check to make sure that every child comes in and has a name tag. That's how we keep our kids safe. That's how we know that this child goes with this parent, because I know even I have a hard time knowing everybody. We can't know everybody at this point. We've just gotten too large for that. So we have to rely on some other means to know for sure that we are keeping the kids as safe as we possibly can. And the last thing is, we really discourage kids bringing any toys. So if a child does bring a toy, I would encourage you to mention that to parents, or to have the safety team say, hey, we don't really bring toys. It just presents problems. But if they bring them in, I would just collect them up, put them in an area, and say, we'll pass these back out at the end of class. And then there's no worries about a toy getting torn up or messed up in any way. So that's what I would do with toys or anything that's brought in. All right, page 6, safety and allegations. Bathroom policy. Our teenagers, 17 and under, are not to take kids to the bathroom. And I know when you're teaching, it might seem like, hey, the teenagers would be a great option to send them down there. Well, teenagers aren't background checked. We would hope that there would be no issues, but we don't know that. So teenagers are not to be the ones to take kids to the bathroom. And when it comes to the bathroom, I would suggest, if the children are old enough, allow them to go by themselves. There's a safety person down there who'll make sure that they don't, and I would make sure that the safety person's right there. Poke your head out the door. Hey, I'm sending so-and-so to the bathroom, and they can watch to make sure that they go into the bathroom. Then they come back out and they can watch them come back to the classroom. If they're too young to go, if we're talking about We Worship, so on, I would tend to say do group bathroom breaks. And I know that's a whole lot easier for me to say sitting here than it is in reality. But what you don't want to do is find yourself alone in the bathroom with a child. It's better to take the whole class in there and let them just hang out in the bathroom until you get that one child taken care of. Or you can go in, have the safety person stand at the door, that type thing. But we don't want to be alone in the bathroom with the door shut with the child. That's, again, your protection and the protection of the child. All right, there's several things listed here about touch policies, what's appropriate and what is inappropriate. In this, I'm not going to read them all. Again, you can read, but please do read through that, because things sometimes that we might think are innocent on our part might be mistaken by someone. And I want you to be in the best place possible to never be questioned about something that you might have done. So please make sure you read the things that are appropriate and that are inappropriate in our church setting with our children. The next part is about discipline. There's several steps that you can take. And I know if you're like me, you would like to think, oh, this isn't school and we don't really want to discipline them. And I get that. We want them to come here and have a great time. But what we sometimes forget is that if we let a child be disruptive, then we're letting one child take away what we can teach a whole group of children. So we don't want to let a disruptive behavior continue. So there are steps there about what needs to be done. And if it just continues, if it's to the point that you just simply don't know what to do, please bring that to our attention, and we can get together with the parents and the child and discuss the situation. Them being downstairs is a privilege. It is not a requirement. So they need to understand that it is a privilege. I just want you to feel like empowered, that like you have the authority to say, this is not behavior we're going to accept in here, and do it in a respectful and calm manner, and then we can move on from there. All right, the next page 7, is about child abuse. Again, we hope that we never have to deal with any of this, but the reality of the situation is that we might it's very likely that we could. So if a child ever says anything to you, draws a picture that depicts maybe some sort of abuse, whatever, we have to report it. What we ask of you is that you come to me, you come to one of the elders, you come to one of the ministers, and you say, this is what this child said to me, or this is what this child drew on a picture, and then we will go from there. But it is a requirement that we not let something like that go. So please make sure you have read through what things you should report, and how you should respond to the child, because the one thing we don't want you to say to the child is, I'm not going to tell anybody, because we know if this is so, we're going to have to tell somebody. We're going to move forward. So you can just be comforting to them and listen to them and stay calm, and then share that with someone else, with one of us, following that time. So just make sure you are very well aware of what things to be looking for and what things should be reported. The last two, or the next two sheets, page 8 and 9, are just an example of that ouch report and incident report that I had mentioned earlier, so you can take a look at those. And then the last page is a volunteer participation covenant. It's all the things, or the most important things, that I have mentioned during this video, and things that are in our manual. So I'd ask that you would read those, and if you agree with all the things that are listed and the things that are in this manual, and you say, yes, I will abide by those guidelines, then you sign it and turn it in to us, and that's when I know you are prepared to move on and be a part of our children's program. If there's something you do not agree with, that's understandable, and you can just say that to me. I don't agree with whatever, or I don't agree with something in it. Or if you have a question about it and you would like for me to explain it further, I am happy to do so. So just let me know. Be glad to go over that with you. Lastly, I want to say that we are trying to create an environment downstairs that parents understand goes far beyond babysitting. What you do and what our current volunteers do downstairs is not babysitting. It is church on their level. And the nursery, of course, sometimes they go in with the bigger kids during worship. But 2-year-olds all the way up to 5th grade have an opportunity every Sunday morning to sing worship songs, to take communion, to give offering, and then to be taught a lesson. And we believe that is very important. It is far beyond a babysitting service. So I want you to embrace that. I want you to feel that what you're doing is so important. I can't think of a ministry that's any more important than that of children's ministry, because statistically, we know that most people who make a decision for Christ do so before they're 18 years old. So we have a huge responsibility with these little kids. Their little minds are like sponges. They are ready and willing to be molded and shaped and formed. And we just want them to know that when they get out into this world, that they are not alone, that they have Jesus with them, and that they can always be confident in that. So it is a huge responsibility, but it is a huge honor. So I thank you so much for your willingness to step in and help out. And I'm excited to work alongside you in this ministry. So just let me know when you have filled out the covenant and you're ready to move on to the next step. Thanks so much.